When should your child get their first cell phone? That's what we're talking about today. It's going to be a good video. Here we go. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is a very widely differentiating conversation. Every parent has a different view. We know parents, friends of ours who, by the time their child was 7, 8 years old, they had a cell phone. We know parents who don't give their kids phones until they're in their teens or late teens. 16, 17, 18. So this is widely varied based on parenting styles. And today, I want to give you some information to help you make a better decision on when to get your child their first cell phone. And so we live in a world where online exploitation is insane. It happens in our schools. It happens in our, wherever we're at, because we're connected to the world through our cell phones. And so we live in a world where pedophiles actively engage individuals, children online, even through iPads and through the internet, through computers at home. And so this is a decision that as parents, we've really got to sit down and think about, when should our child get their first cell phone, because they're going to be alone with it. They're going to be at school with their cell phone, and we're not always going to be there to protect them. So I want to share with you 5 quick things the experts say you should think about. This is just out there in the internet land, and through our experience, I agree with most of this, with all of it. But I want to share 5 things experts say, and then I want to share 3 thoughts with you, personal thoughts of mine. My wife and I, we've got a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old, and our 14-year-old has her first cell phone. Our 11-year-old has a flip phone with no internet. It's just a phone. That's us. But I want to share with you these thoughts today from experts, and then our personal thoughts on the issue to help you make an informed decision. So number 1, 5 things the experts say you should think about is the right age. Generally, many experts recommend waiting until at least 12, 13 years old, preteens, before they get their first cell phone, just specifically because they've left this. There's an age, I'm not an expert in this, but I just read this a few days ago. There's an age where fantasy isn't as much of a issue, or they're not so much in the fantasy world, but they're more realistic and logical as their brain develops. And so that's around 12, 13 years old. I've heard other psychologists talk about like how kids believe in magic with like Disney and Disney princesses and all the characters, and how they believe that's real. And then there's a certain point where they stop they realize, hey, this is make-believe. And so experts say about 12 to 13 years old. You can look some of this stuff up online. So as far as the right age goes, that's where they're kind of directing our focus. But they also say that you've got to look at online safety issues and personal information. Is your child ready to protect their personal information? And before you hand off a device to your child, you've got to have an open and honest conversation with them about sharing personal information, about sharing location services on apps, and not just with another individual, but through the internet, putting in your personal information on a website or through an app, and how that shares your location and who you are and where you live and where you go to school. And so having a open and honest conversation about those dangers of sharing your personal information, as well as just if you're gonna, a cell phone is one thing with access to the internet on it and texting with friends, but then social media is another issue that we all have to go through and decide, are we gonna allow our kids, our teens, to have social media at home? Personally, my wife and I, we've decided that our daughter, who's 14, is not gonna have social media until she's older. We haven't decided exactly when that's going to happen, but we know at 14 she's not ready, just based on the comparison trap that happens, comparing lives, comparing stuff, comparing looks, the depression statistics, anxiety statistics that are out there today are just too overwhelming, even with adults, even with our own personal, you're on social media, I'm on social media, just comparing lives and successes and those things is very tough. It's a mental health issue. We don't want our daughter, honestly, dealing with that at 14 years old. And so obviously our 11-year-old doesn't have social media as well. But before you handing over a device, have an open and honest conversation about sharing information, about cyberbullying, about inappropriate content, about sexting, even sex trafficking and pedophiles and sexual exploiters. And so another thing to consider is there are parental controls, but they don't always work. There are tons of tools out there that you can put on your kids' phones that give you information on who they're texting, what they're looking at online, what apps they have on their phone that allow you to see that, as well as location services. I mean, you have got Find My Phone and Life 360, a lot of great resources out there for that. But you need to consider, are we going to have this conversation up front and put these services on their phone? Do they already have a phone and you're having problems right now? And then having that conversation after the fact, going, hey, we're going to start watching your phone and have some more accountability on there. But you can also set screen time. You can block inappropriate content and set a parental password on there. Have you walked through those resources as a parent and said, hey, what are we going to place on this phone before we give it to them? And I think a mistake would be to just hand them the phone and then have that conversation after the fact, after they've had the phone half the school year. Having that conversation after is so much harder than setting up the rules beforehand and putting that into place. And so number 4 is this: you got to educate your child, specifically the dangers of how pedophiles and traffickers use the internet to exploit their victims. I think this is key. This is our world. We see this happen every day. Young ladies, young boys being exploited, connecting online with some stranger who has a nefarious purpose for them, and they befriend them. You've got to have some uncomfortable conversations with your kids. And if they're not at the age where you feel like you want to have that conversation, then maybe they're not at the age where they need a phone. I think there's got to be some standards there, some hard standards of if they're going to have a phone, they're going to have this conversation. And if the conversation isn't, you think, man, as a parent, I'm not ready to have that conversation with my kid, then maybe they're not ready for a phone. But we've got to educate them on how these sexual exploiters use and what they use these tools for, and our phones against us. So they've got to be aware. And then 5th is this: stay involved. Giving a phone to your kid isn't the last step. It isn't, okay, we decided, we gave them a phone and now we're done. Doesn't mean you hand them the phone and walk away, but you've got to stay actively involved in their life and in their online activity to keep them safe. There's literally no one else going to do that. And I understand there's pressure around, all their friends have phones, other parents may be giving their kids phones at younger ages. You are your family's you're responsible for your kids, and you've got to make an informed decision as a parent whether or not this is going to happen for your kid, excluding other parents and other families. So here's my thoughts. I got 3 thoughts I want to share with you. These are from me and my family, and kind of stuff that we've talked through and helped us make an informed decision and our experience with our kids. So number 1 is this: your child, and you may want to write this down. This is good. Okay. Trust me. Your child is ready for a phone to the degree in which you are ready to be involved in their accountability. Okay. I'll say it again. Your child is ready for a phone to the degree in which you are ready to be involved in their accountability. You're not just handing them a phone. You're giving them something that gives them access to the world. In turn, the world has access to them. And so if you're not willing to be involved, then your child is probably not ready for a cell phone. These are our thoughts. This is what I think about the situation. Number 2 is this: it's not if, it's when they break the rules or something happens you don't approve of. Now, I'm not saying your child's going to be trafficked or, interact with a pedophile. That happens a lot, but something that will happen that you don't approve of, guaranteed. And I guarantee you, even if you have a great kid, which we all think we have great kids, but there's going to be a moment where they break the rules. There's just a lot of pressure. If you set rules, there's just so much pressure. Their friends whose parents don't set any rules do something and they want to be a part of it or have the same app or whatever. It's going to happen. It's not if, it's when. So are you prepared to walk with your child through that, even after setting the rules and setting the boundaries? So number 3 is this: it's more important to have conversation about how to keep themselves safe than it is you protecting them 24/7. You should give more emphasis to talking them through how to keep themselves safe online, not talk to people they don't know in person, or know how to identify a pedophile or a trafficker, an exploiter, know about the dangers and what's going to happen when sexting comes into play, or if somebody asks for a nude picture or they're in that world. It's more important to talk through that beforehand and have that conversation and prepare your kids for that and have a plan with them and trust them and go through that process than it is for you to be a helicopter mom and just to be on them, or a helicopter dad and to be on them all the time and trying to protect them 24/7. That is something you have to think through, to go, I'm not going to be with my child 24/7. That's the reason I'm getting them a phone, because I don't want to have to, pull up to the school and go in and get them. I just want to call them and tell them I'm there. I want to drop them off at a party, and I just want to call and say, hey, come out and get in the car. Big convenience, but also big responsibility when we choose to give our kids a cell phone. So, in conclusion, you're the parent. You have to make this choice. This is you. And our kids are worth keeping safe. And I hope that whatever age you consider giving your kid a cell phone, you choose to walk with them through the conversations that need to happen, and then choose to be actively involved in their accountability with that digital device. So hope this information was helpful and this content was valuable for you. If you have any questions or comments, put them below. We'd love to connect. We'd love to hear your ideas and things you're doing to keep your kids safe online. And thank you so much for watching today.